Hey guys, it's Nero Haro, and today I want to talk about wet palettes and also show you how you can make your own wet palette. Here is my wet palette that I use now. This is an Army Painter one, which I got last year. Here. But before I had this wet palette, I was using this one. This was my old wet palette that I cleaned up. But as you can see, it's just a sponge that's been soaked with water and then some baking paper. Here, that's all wet palette it is. But this container is not exactly the most airtight, as well as this is really annoying because it eats up a lot more room. So, if you want to try a wet palette out, but don't want to pay, prices for an actual wet palette, you can make your own. And I'm going to show you pretty much what you need in order to make it. First thing first, you're going to need is a container that isn't super deep, but that's shallow enough, like this Citadel grass tuff container here. I just took my grass tufts out of it for right now for this purpose. But something like that would work just fine because the lid is nice and tight, locks on nice and tight, so it won't fall off during transport if you transport, which is important. I'm going to put my grass tufts back inside the container because I don't want to lose them. You will also need a sponge. Of course, make sure it's a thin sponge like this or something. You can also just use paper towels soaked with water as well. Baking paper that you will cut to the size of the sponge that fits inside of the container. And of course, to cut the baking paper and sponge, you can either use a pair of scissors or a hobby knife, aka a X-Acto blade hobby knife, a box cutter, a utility knife, like an Olaf knife or something like that. And all you're going to do is take the sponge, put it inside the container to see where you need to cut. Put the sponge inside the container to the corner, and then see where you need to cut in order to be able to fit into the container. Once you've done that, all you would have to do is apply water inside of the container, make sure the sponge is nice and soaked, and then apply the baking paper that's been cut to size. But with the baking paper, cut the baking paper a bit smaller than the size of the sponge, because when you are applying the baking paper inside the wet palette container, you're going to want to make sure you get both sides wet of the baking paper so it doesn't curl up on you, which can be really annoying. And then you can you're either using your hands or a piece of wood or whatever, something of a straight edge, and you want to wipe out all the air bubbles inside of it, so it's nice and flat. And then once that's done, you're going to want to take a paper towel and wipe off all the excess water droplets off of the baking paper, because if you were to take your paint, apply it to the baking paper with the water droplets on it, it's going to over-thin your paint. Now, a wet palette does not automatically thin your paints. You still need to thin your paint, even with a wet palette. All the wet palette is doing is keeping your paint moist. So you can use it for more than a day, depending on how many minis or whatever you're painting. Now me, I do miniature painting. I mean, I'm not the greatest at it, but I'm not horrible either. I'm still learning as I go and having fun. Again, I don't enter competitions or any of that for mini painting or any of that. The only competitions I enter are model competitions for Gunpla and such, which is my mainly do. Sorry, I have a bit of gas there. But it allows to keep your paint wet so you can be able to use it over several days, as well as you can mix up several different tones of paint or whatever, and go from the wet palette to your model instead of from the paint pot to your model. Again, that's your choice, but that's what I just wanted to cover, is what a wet palette is, what it's used for, and how to make one. But I think I've covered everything, really. I showed you how to make one, pretty much. I showed you my actual wet palette, and then I also showed you the homemade wet palette, as well as what you're going to need. Oh, wait. Now, a wet palette, you are going to want to make sure that when you're not using it and you're not doing any painting sessions, you clean the wet palette out. Wash it, let the sponge dry, take the paper out, wash it in hot soapy water, rinse the sponge out, let it dry. That way, it does not get moldy. Because a moldy wet palette is no good. That's really important. But that is my DIY tip for today. For this video. But if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell button to be notified for when I upload a new video. As well as make sure to leave down a comment down below. So make sure to share as well. And if you do leave comments, I pretty much will respond to all comments I get, if I get any. As well as you can follow me on Instagram, which is also down below, as well as Twitter. And I also have a Ko-fi page where you can help support me to make content for my channel. And we have one goal currently set there, which is just to be able to enough to be able to afford a kit for a project. That would be of your guys' choice. I could make a poll listing what kits, and then the winning kit is the kit that would be bought with that money raised for it, and then a build video or a whatever video would come of that. Oops, sorry, I hit the camera. But that's all down below. And by you doing that, and subscribing, leaving comments, leaving likes, that all really helps me out, and I very much appreciate it. This has been Nero Haro. I'll see you guys probably in the next video. Next week. I'm trying a video per week right now, so I'll see you guys next week with the next video. Till then, see ya!